Yeah, so we will see when we will be talking about drop down, and the drop down box are handled by select class of Selenium API. Okay, so select is done. Checkbox is normal. Image, token link added box. Yeah. Now your list box. So list box can have can select Sitara more than one item, right? So you can do multi-select here. Okay, select more than one item. Then existence, this is common. You can check the existence, then whether it is enabled or not. Then you can get the item count. Next is your combo box. Combo box is actually nothing but a combination of drop down plus list box. So this is your combo box. So in combo box, what you can do, you can select the item, you can enter the item, you can check existence, then you can uncheck enabled status. Okay, then return the item count. Okay, now your next item is your web table. So let's say you have some web table, HTML table, right? Wherein you need to perform actions. So what actions you can perform on web table? So web table is nothing but your 2D array, right? Wherein you will have a lot of rows and a lot of columns. So what action you can perform on a web table? We can check the existence of web table, right? Existence. Now we can get cell data. Right? So what is the data on a particular cell? Right? We can get the row count. How many rows are there in a web table? We can get a column counts. Yeah, making sense? Web table or HTML, is it understandable? 2D array.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Likewise, we have frames also, right? So wherein you will find a lot of frames in a web page, right? And those frames actually could be multiple frames also. So your main frame would be a parent frame, then you will have child frames, child 1, child 2, child 3, right? So what actually happens in frame? So frames are nothing but a section of a web page, you can say section of a web page wherein you can see multiple elements, or you can see it contains lot of elements, may contain elements. Now there is a way of operating on frame, right? So in manual testing, what we do, let's say we are on a parent frame and there are 3 child frames. Let's say I'm having a parent frame and then I'm having 3 child frames. So if I'm going from if I need to work on child frame 3, then I can directly go from parent to child 3. That's how I can do in a manual testing, but in automation it is bit different, right? So in automation testing, what we do, we have a parent frame, then we will go to child 3. I can go to child 3 directly. But if I want to go to child 2 after that, I cannot go directly there. So from child 3, I will have to go back to parent frame. And from parent frame only, I can move to child 2. And from child 2, again, I will have to go to parent frame. And then parent frame to child 1. Likewise, we can perform the operation on a frame. But in case of manual testing, it is not like that. You can go from parent frame to child 3, and then from child 3 to child 2, or from child 2 to parent if you want to perform action, and then from parent to child 1, and then from child 1 to child 3. Likewise, you can do in a manual testing, but it is not same as automation, right? We will see how to handle these frames, right? So to switching from one frame to another frame, we will use switch to command. Okay, and wherein we pass dot switch to dot frame, etc., and then frame number. Okay, so I think apart from this, I think we covered a lot here. Edit box, textual link button, drop down list, combo, check, radio, web table frame, alert, multiple action. Okay. So alert is an interface basically, and Selenium can handle alerts, as in whenever there is a web alert, right? Either it can accept that alert, accept
Like pop-up,
alert pop-up,
message.
alert pop-up, alert pop-up, any web pop-up or alert pop-up. It can dismiss, it can send the values to that pop-up, or it can read the value from the pop-up. Okay, so this we will do using alert interface. Likewise, for handling multiple windows, we have two methods here: get window handle and get window handles. Okay, so get window handle returns the parent window handle, or returns parent window handle, and get window handles return all the windows handle which are actually opened by Selenium. And those windows are actually, those window handle are stored in the set of a string. Why in set of a string? Because set does not allow duplicate. Remember, we have seen that in Java.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you go to get window handle here, let's say driver dot get window handle. See, so when you select get window handle, it is returning only one string. It says returns the current window handle. And when you select get window handles, it returns a set of window handles which can be used to iterate over all windows, all open windows. So get window handles and get window handle. This is a frequently asked question in an interview. Sitara, understanding, right?
Yes, Nitin.
Okay. So accept is done, alert is done, and then coming to action class. Okay. So action class is basically used to move from one point to another point for mouse over activity. Over activity, or any activity which is related to mouse, as in right click, context click, etc. Mouse click, right click. We will discuss on this when we will be discussing about action class. Context click. Fine. Now moving on. We will now talk about locators. Okay, until here, is it everything fine? So after action classes, we will talk about element locator. How can we identify element on a web page? right? So basically, element locator is nothing but an address. It is an address which identify web element uniquely on a web page. Uniquely on a web page. Okay. And basically, Selenium supports 8 type of locators. 8 type of element locators. So to locate the item on a web page. So first is your ID, right? So what is the ID of that element? Second is name. The ID is most preferred because ID is always unique. Name is again most preferred because name is also unique. Okay, so any web element will have a unique ID or a unique name. Then it could be a class name. Class name cannot be unique, right? So let's say there are several buttons, right? All buttons could be related to one class only. So class name might not be unique. It cannot be unique. I cannot say it cannot be unique, but it might not be unique. Then we have tag name. We can use the tag name also. Then we have link text, partial link text. Then we have XPath, which is most widely used. Then we have CSS selector. Okay, so these are your, I would say, basic locators, and these are your advanced locators. Okay, we go for advanced locators when we are not able to find the element using basic locators, right? So there are 8 I would say 8 element locators in Selenium, right? So first is your ID, nothing but your unique ID which a web element can have. Then your name, the element might have the name also. Then class name, then tag name. Tag name could be like your your anchor tag for a, or for any element on a table. You can get td, tr for table data, table row, etc. th or image is also a tag, right? Then link text. What is the link text? Could be your href property, partial link text, XPath, right? And then CSS. We will talk about them one by one. Right? So just to give you a brief about XPath, we have 2 types of XPath. First is absolute XPath, and second is relative XPath. Absolute XPath starts from 1/. Relative XPath starts from 2/. Okay, so when you go to a web page, right, and when you locate the item, let's say I'm trying to locate this email address. I am here on this web page. I will have to do a right click and from here copy, and then you can copy the XPath, you can copy the full XPath, you can copy the selector, right? So you will get your locator here. So if I copy the XPath here, I'll get the XPath. So this, right? Copy, XPath email address. After that, let's say I am trying to locate email address by dot XPath dot send keys. Then let's say I'm typing email here. Okay, now this time I'm using XPath. I'm not using any ID or class name, anything, right? And it is not required. If I run this, so on which element I'm working on? Now I'm working on this email address. Let's see if it is passing the email to my email address field or not using XPath. Yeah, so email was passed to email address. Can you see this?
Nitin, one question here. You
Yeah.
have written expert. You have taken expert directly from this inspect thing by right clicking. We haven't written it manually, right?
We can return it. I was coming to that point only.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Good.
So this time we
Because
have.
I can see star is there, right? So
Yeah. We can write our XPath. So this we can directly take from the DOM, right? So this time I've taken it from the DOM. So I have taken the XPath, right? So that is your absolute X or relative XPath. So you can see the short XPath here, right? Starting from the 2 forward slashes. Instead of this, I can take full XPath also, which starts from your head node. If you copy the full XPath, it will be too long. And it will start from your single slash. Can you see? It's starting from the head node, HTML, then body, div2, div, there's so many divs, and then finally input, right? So this is called your absolute XPath, which is starts from your head node. And this is too long. It is very complicated, right? So using this also, you can locate the element, but this is not advisable to use absolute XPath. The reason is that, let's say if going forward, there is any change in any of the between nodes, right? Then your this XPath will fail. Okay. So this is not recommended to use XPath, your absolute XPath. And relative XPath also, sometimes those XPaths are very complex. You, though you are using them, but it might fail sometimes. So for that, you can write your own XPath. Okay, and for that we have couple of syntaxes that we will discuss when we will be talking about XPath in detail, right? So we can using text contains, there are some methods in that, right? Following sibling, preceding sibling, ancestor, and all that. With the help of all those mechanisms, you can write your own XPath. And then you can use CSS selector also. So for CSS selector, what you have to do, you have to just go to this field and then copy selector. So instead of XPath here, I will have to write this is my CSS selector. It is good actually. CSS selector is good because uh, the syntax is very simple. Okay, so it's just one hashtag and then your email create. This is your name, okay? And email CSS. If I run this, I will be able to locate that element and I will be able to pass these values. Yeah. So email CSS, right? We have passed this value. Naresh, Disha, Sitaram.
Yeah, understanding everything.
So why these all locators are required? What is the reason? And why we need to use different locators?
Locators are required because then if locators are not there, how can we find the element, that particular element?
Yeah.
And these many locators are required because sometimes there might be a scenario, there would be just a class name given into that code.
Correct.
So we should know which locator we should take. Or there might be a scenario, a class name ID would be there, but class name would be used multiple times, and there will be unique ID. Then
Correct.
to find the element uniquely, we can go for ID.
So actually, what happens when any web page is developed? So developers, I mean, there is no any rule that developer should provide ID or should provide name, right? So he is free to provide any of the locators there, right? So let's say if I am relying only on ID, then there might be a challenge going forward that you are not able to identify the locators. So that is the reason we have a lot of variety of locators. So we can choose either of them and we can identify the locators. If there are no direct locators, we can write your own own locator also. Okay. So developers may not provide, basically developers may not provide all locators for every element. That is first reason. Second reason is some locators are not applicable for all elements. Are not applicable for every element, right? So in case of link text, so in case of link text, right? So link text will not be applicable for your edit box, because edit box will have the input tag or class name or value, right? Name or anything, but there won't be any link text in the edit box. So some locators are not applicable, or likewise link text will not have any, might not have any tag name or something, or class name. So all locators are not applicable for all elements actually. Now some locators might be duplicate also, as Disha said, right? So some locators might be duplicate also, as in class name might be duplicate sometime, and then you will have to choose other locators. All right. So these are the reason we have a variety of locators, and basis your convenience, you can use any of the locators. But your locator should be written in such a way that going forward, if there are any changes in a code, then it is least impacted. It is not like you are writing any general locator. I mean, you are using any general locator and it is changing, right? And every time you are trying to change, because when you work in a real time, you will see a lot of locators. You will have to create object repository, and there you will see hundreds of locators. So every time you cannot go and check them whether those are working fine or not. So uh, in first instance, only try to find out locator which could be useful in the long run. Okay, now how to inspect element, we have seen, right? How to inspect element. So in Chrome, we can just right click here on a web page, and then you can just mouse over on this.